And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast on this November 6, 2025. We're going to be joined tonight by Patrick Wood to talk about Tucker Carlson, the guy that reportedly funded him, a Muslim dude, and J.D. Vance, along with some of the tech bros. Are they already setting up for the post-Trump era? What does that look like? We'll get with Patrick Wood on that. I pre-recorded an interview with Patrick yesterday, and I want to bring that to you today. I'm also going to talk with Michael Weiner and play some cases, some audio from the Supreme Court yesterday, the Supreme Court case about tariffs. What happens? And it looks like the Supreme Court might actually say that the president can't have these kind of powers. What about returning the money? How much money are we talking about? And what will that mean for America's economy? How are we going to pay that back? We're going to create more debt. We're going to create more money, sell more bonds. Who wants to buy these bonds? Who's buying these bonds now? We know from the sell of stable coins backed by bonds that's one way they've gotten people to buy bonds is by backing with stable coins, backing the stable coins with bonds, I should say. But at some point, who's going to keep buying all this debt? What does that mean for you? What does that mean for me? What about the housing price, the price of housing? I've got an article today where builders are bringing down the interest rate to like 4%. They're offering the people that buy from them financing at like 4%, and people are still saying no. Why? Because they can't afford the houses. Let's take a look also at the S&P 500, and then the job market, the job losses. People are losing their jobs. There's unemployment increasing, but the S&P keeps going up. Do you trust the financial documents from these corporations? Or could it be the corporations are replacing these employees and these workers with AI? Let's get into all that tonight with Michael Weiner. And then we'll have a little conversation that I also pre-recorded yesterday with Dr. Lana. And Dr. Lana and I talked about a couple things. One of them, though, was red light saunas. Saunas. How important are saunas? It turns out there's been some studies done on that, but not only saunas, but on hot tubs. Very interesting studies on the importance of heating up the body. We'll talk about that with Dr. Lana tonight. And then some more clips by Nick Fuentes, who seems to be now exposing his agenda, which seems to be to make sure that the Democrat Party and the Republican Party are on the same side with putting forth candidates that are anti-Israel. We also have what is said to be some of the first steps to be taken by the new mayor of New York, Mamdani. And would you be shocked? It's a lot of anti-Israel policies he's going to put into place pretty quick. I thought the priority was going to be the people and free buses and childcare and a government-run grocery store, but apparently it's going to be going right after Israel. All right, we got a lot to talk about, including a little clip by Tucker Carlson today, having a conversation with Megyn Kelly. What's this here, Logan? Oh, Elon saying in the end, AI will control us. Was this where he was also dancing and celebrating because they just passed his little $1 trillion pay package? I think I saw that headline. Okay, we'll roll it, Logan. Let's roll it. Here we go.
Even today, you've mentioned, though, that in a post-scarcity world, the role of money could diminish or become obsolete. Mm-hmm. Given that much of today's power, including yours, is tied to wealth, do you think achieving this abundance would require powerful people to relinquish their power? And how might we address resistance from those who hold power to make this vision a reality?
Well, I mean, I think actually long-term, the AI is going to be in charge, to be totally frank, not humans. if artificial intelligence vastly exceeds the sum of human intelligence, it is difficult to imagine that any humans will actually be in charge. So we just need to make sure the AI is friendly. Yeah?
Thank you.
Was that the question? Go ahead, sure.
Wow. We're all going to be ruled by artificial intelligence. Well, take a look at this here. Elon Musk wins $1 trillion Tesla pay package. Shareholders approved a plan to grant Mr. Musk shares worth nearly $1 trillion if he meets ambitious goals, including vastly expanding the company's stock market valuation. Wow. He'll be a trillionaire. Incredible. All right, lot to get to tonight, no doubt about it. All right, before we do, remember we're brought to you by you. You know I take it each and every day. It's Bella Grace, 3 powerful ingredients. My hands, look how beautifully, look how clean, not cracked, not bleeding. This has not been the case for a lot of years, but December 2023, I got on Bella Grace. I take it each and every day, 80 clinical trials behind it, amazing collagen with the peptides cut short so your body actually absorbs it, okay? Take a look at that. Also, the GLP-1, the new Bella Melts are very, very popular. And unlike so many things that are dangerous for you, this is something you take and put in your mouth and it's a melt. You let it melt. And they're telling us there are no side effects to this. In fact, Dr. Bashima was wanting to talk about why she likes this, and we got off track. So we'll go back to that with her when we talk to her probably a little bit later this week or next week. Numi, I take it and squish it because it helps to what? Detox my cells. This is all natural. Glutathione's in your body, but it starts to decrease. Remember all the studies that have come out recently? You can't live without glutathione. And the connection between babies that die from SIDS, who've had their glutathione zapped out of their body from vaccines or Tylenol and other things that we've done interviews on that at least, right? Maybe a connection between Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's and lack of glutathione. Well, studies show glutathione may actually remove mercury from your body, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. So I swish with that for about 3 minutes a day, and then you can either swallow it or spit it out. It's the most complete way to get glutathione in your system. You can go to an IV. That's going to cost you about $250, but it gets broken down according to studies when you do it through an IV versus swishing with it. It's right into your system. Okay. And then the other thing I do every day is I drink my Gatatana. That's at mosahousegpa.com. 1 scoop, the equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. These are the 3 things I do every day. And it's a great way for you to support, I think, your health and us at the same time. And of course, you can go to worldviewstore.com, and you can find out about our satellite phones. I have a satellite phone. I think every family should have a satellite phone. Go to worldviewtalk.com. What'd I say? Oh, no. Go to Worldview Talk. Good catch. Worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. Get your information on the satellite phone or use that number 1-866-738-3224. 1-866-738-3224. These make great gifts, by the way. They make great gifts for Christmas. So go check those out. This is not a luxury thing, folks. This is an emergency thing. And by the way, with Tina, she allows the minutes to roll over continually. So if you really do have to eventually use it, you're not going to worry about running out of minutes because like most of us, we're not talking on our sat phones very much. And so when you do need them, you're going to have a lot of minutes. You also can get what is called the Bivy. You can sync this to your cell phone. If the cell towers go down, you can still sync this to your cell phone and use your cell phone to compose the message, but you would then send it to a satellite using the Bivy and down to your family member that has the other one. So you buy one for yourself, you buy one from your family member, and at least you're still able to text. Now, if you get a satellite phone and you each have a satellite phone, or one of you has a satellite phone and one has a Bivy, remember you can send text through the satellite phone. So maybe you have the satellite phone and you get the Bivy for your child at college, or your adult child who lives away from you and has your grandchildren. At least you're able to use your satellite phone to compose a text, send it, and your family member can read it when they receive it through this Bivy tied to their cell phone, even if the cell towers are down, because the message is going through the satellites. Okay? Worldviewtalk.com. They also have solar generators, and they have bulletproof backpacks, and so much more at worldviewtalk.com. A lot of great stuff there. Make great Christmas gifts, including the beanies and the blankets that knock down the EMF, electromagnetic force, EMF rays as well, which a lot of studies about what that does to the DNA. So you might want to give your body a rest or a break. You'll find those blankets and beanies at worldviewtalk.com. All right. I did a great interview with Patrick yesterday, pre-taped it. He also has a brand new book out that I've endorsed. I want to bring that to you and then come back and play some clips from a conversation between Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, as well as some admission by apparently Nick Fuentes as what it is he's trying to accomplish. But first, this very important interview with Patrick Wood. Watch this. Joining me now is Patrick Wood. He's going to respond to this article right here. The secret donor circle that lifted J.D. Vance is now rewriting MAGA's future. Wow. In 2019, a small group of right-wing donors rented a resort outside the 100-person town of Rockbridge, Ohio, for a summit to secure the future of the MAGA movement. They aim to turn a singular candidate, President Donald Trump, into an enduring political coalition with a pipeline of voters, donors, and candidates that would cement a radical transformation of the GOP. Convened by Silicon Valley billionaire Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance, then an investor who had written a best-selling memoir. The meeting included hedge fund heirs Rebecca Mercer, then Fox News host Tucker Carlson, and economist Oren Cass, according to two people familiar with the meeting. The people spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe the private gathering, details of which have not been previously reported. But the person in the room who had solidified the group's ambitions was someone who decided with a decidedly lower profile, an Arizona insurance entrepreneur and conservative media figure named Chris Buskirk. Today, Buskirk helms the Rockbridge New Work, a secretive organization birthed out of the weekend gathering that established itself as one of the most influential forces in the GOP politics. Well, there you go. Let's talk about this and more, including we got a brand new article over here. If you go inside the Billionaires Network, it's going to take us over to technocracy.news, Shaping MAGA's Post-Trump Future. It's over at technocracy.news. And look at that, a brand new book by Patrick Wood, The Final Betrayal, a cautionary tale, how technocracy destroyed America. And I endorsed the book along with Russell Blaylock and Catherine Austin Fitts. And then I have the endorsement right there. So let's talk about this, because I also see another name in here that is of concern, and that is of Islamic dude. I'm scrolling for his name through here. I think it's going to pop up. I think he's the one. What, Logan? It's up higher. I think he's the one that helped fund Tucker Carlson, according to a lot of reports. Let's see. It's in here. Malik, was that his name? I can do the old Control F. How do you spell his last name, guys? O-L-I. How do you spell his name, Patrick?
Malik. M-A-L-I-K.
M-A-L-I-K.
Yeah. His first name is Omid.
Omid. Okay, there we go. There we go. There we go.
No.
There we go. Omid Malik. He's Muslim. There you go. All right, join me now is Patrick Wood. Hello, Patrick.
Great to be with you.
Great
this is
to have you with us.
Interesting day.
Well, it is post-election, right?
Yes.
You write in this book that 1789 Capital, the venture capital firm that he founded, Buskirk, with investor Omid Malik, focuses on what the partners call, quote, patriotic capitalism, end quote, and now counts Donald Trump Jr. as a partner.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me about all of this.
Malik is the CEO of this investment, 1789 Capital. I almost feel like we need to construct
flow chart.
A chart like they do in a murder mystery, where they put all the stuff on the cork board and they put strings between it, figure out who goes where. This is so deep at this point. I'm still kind of figuring out where all of these connections are, but we see Don Jr., J.D. Vance, Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson.
Wait a minute, Charlie Kirk was at this meeting?
Not exactly, but he was one of the first investors in the 1789 capital firm.
Was he really?
Yes, he was. This basically kind of debunks the idea that he had a brush in with Peter Thiel when he was in college or before he went to college. And
you're talking about J.D. Vance now.
No, I'm talking about Charlie Kirk.
Okay.
Charlie Kirk applied for a grant from Peter Thiel. He didn't get it, but nevertheless, he was there, okay, when he was under 20 years old. So I would have dismissed that. Okay, he did it, he lost, and he didn't get anywhere. But now it comes out there was a relationship all along with Peter Thiel. Because the 1789 Capital Fund included Peter Thiel as well. He's one of the architects of it, if you will. And he was a friend of all these people, including J.D. Vance, and of course, J.D. Vance is his protege. But now it appears that Charlie Kirk knew exactly what he was doing with Peter Thiel, and he dumped a lot of money into the 1789 Capital Fund.
And you have that documented?
Yep. Well, it's in this article. Mm-hmm. It said plainly, it says he was one of the first investors. So,
and what is the goal of this organization that you say he and others were investing in?
Well, this is a venture capital company, and they invest in companies. Like the first investment they made was to fund what was Carlson's network? TCN, I think it was, right?
Yeah,
that was their first investment. So their idea was to invest in non-woke companies. And that included, I guess, TCN. That was the first thing they put money into. But they've invested in other companies since. So it's been very profitable for the people who did this. And now we see that Omid Malik, perhaps, he's the CEO of 1789 Capital. That's something.
Let me go back to the article. It says the impact of Rockbridge and super PACs on the 2024 election is not well understood. Rockbridge's affiliated super PAC, Turn Out for America, was one of a handful of groups that canvassed swing states on behalf of the Trump campaign, including Charlie Kirk's Turning Point Action. Turn Out for America spent $34.5 million on the 2024 cycle, according to FCC records, far less than the $261 million from Elon Musk and America's PAC. So what you're saying is they worked very hard to get Donald Trump elected. Is this why we're seeing Donald Trump go so big with the tech bros?
Yeah, apparently so. It seems like this whole thing was architected by Peter Thiel in the first place. We document this in our book, The Final Betrayal. We write a lot about Peter Thiel and documenting exactly where he came from, how he's done all his stuff, how he's strategized. He's a strategist for sure. But we see Peter Thiel in everything going back at least 25 years, starting with the PayPal mafia. And now he's just everywhere you look. And all of a sudden he shows up here in this story where he's with J.D. Vance and Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's everywhere, it seems like. And this is not a mistake, for sure.
So what do you think the goal and objective is of these folks? Is it just technocracy? Absolutely. It is absolutely so. These people, they're one column for sure. There's other people who want to take over the country as well.
and take over the world. Everybody, like the old song says, everybody wants to take over the world. So
everybody wants to rule the world, the old rock song.
Exactly. So
do you think it's possible that Charlie Kirk got into this and saw what was going on, was about to blow the whistle on any of this?
This is a good possibility. I wouldn't say that outright, but I think I'm thinking it. Okay.
Okay. So I want to make sure people understand we're not trashing Charlie Kirk. We're just explaining he went to this group, he was involved, but I have to start wondering if he wasn't about to come out against this group and say we can't go down this road.
I tell you what, if he did that, he would be in big trouble with these people. They couldn't allow that to happen. So, that's a good possibility. There's no other explanation how the organization now has turned around 180 degrees from what it was before, now that Charlie's gone.
Do you think that's because the people around him are scared? It's like, okay, we're backing away from all that?
Well, maybe the powers that be behind the organization in the first place are asserting themselves. And they're saying to the leaders now, you're going to fly the way we want you to fly, not the way Charlie wanted you to fly. But apparently, all this business, for instance, of the
ecumenicalism.
Exactly. This is so in your face now with TPUSA and TPUSA faith that it's not funny. To a Christian, at least, who understands Bible prophecy, you can see where this is headed. And this is bigger than just Charlie Kirk. This is a master plan from Satan's point of view, for sure, to take the country in another direction into this whole business of anti-Semitism, changing the eschatology of the church, what the remaining evangelical church, convincing everybody who falls into this Reconstruction movement, the NAR movement, etc. This is changing the nature of the church, and it's also changing our attitude towards Israel. And you can't see this any other way if you look at it from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah. Tell me about the book then, The Final Betrayal. Tell me about the book. What is, you describe it as the dark horse of the New World Order was never communism, socialism, or fascism. It's always been technocracy, started in the 1930s, reintroduced by the Trilateral Commission in 1973 as the new international economic order. Technocrats have staged a sweeping coup d'etat in plain sight in Washington, D.C. during the Trump presidency. Are you getting pushback on this? Are you getting attacked by Trump supporters for this?
I have a little bit of already some pressure. I'm just discarding it at this point. I have so many receipts on this that there's nobody can argue the point. However, if people didn't read the book, well, how can they say that it's bad? So you buy the book or get the Kindle or whatever, or borrow a copy from somebody. You find out for yourself if what I say is true. And by the way, my co-author, Courtney Turner, she's sharp as a tack. And she really helped me with this book, especially with the philosophy behind it. She did a great breakdown on Peter Thiel as well. But the issue of betrayal is everything that we were hoping for before that election. So just over a year ago, right? It's November 2nd, 2024. We were thinking, well, President Trump is going to come in. He's going to reverse globalism. He's going to drain the swamp. He's going to stop spending money on wars. And he's going to restore economic and cultural primacy. He's going to follow the Constitution. He's going to confront the institutional elites. This is what we were looking for before that election, right?
Exactly. I had to interrupt because this is my blind 11-year-old, nearly blind 11-year-old schnauzer who for some reason needed to come get some attention. Is there something going on I'm supposed to know about? You're kind of mom's dog, but for some reason she's coming to me. Which normally that happens when she has a thunderstorm. She comes to me when it's not thundering out. I don't know what it is you need, but that's why I kept bending over. So, are you all right? Maybe go to Logan. Let Logan check on you. All right.
Hey, she understands the betrayal. I'm telling you what, she gets it. She gets it.
Lily, Logan's opening the studio door, the control room door for you to go in there. She needs some reassuring or something, Logan. Well, I agree with everything you're saying. Look at this. Todd Starnes put out today. 10 months after the inauguration, and nothing has been codified, he writes. States are ignoring Trump's executive orders, and there have been no consequences. The do-nothing Republican Congress has done nothing, absolutely nothing. Hearings galore, but no one has been held accountable for weaponizing our government. All these documents and files the FBI and DOJ promised to release, we're still waiting. And why aren't we defunding taxpayer-funded schools that refuse to follow the executive orders on boys and girls sports? And why haven't they dismantled the Department of Education? I mentioned this with Annie Cyrus today on radio, and that is the speech by a very, I think, weak, feminized Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. It just gives me the creeps. And I think he goes well with the guy that leads the Heritage Foundation. That's another wimp, in my opinion. All wimps. And you wonder why nothing's getting done, folks. Look at the people running these organizations. Do they impress you as very strong, masculine men? And Mikey Johnson couldn't even say the word Islam today. Here's what he had to say. Here we go. Listen to this.
Inside, and it will be even more favorable once all the redistricting stuff is settled out. We have Democrats who are flailing. They have no leader. Their national leader now, as we've noted, is Mondami. He's a communist. Good luck with that.
Yeah, you're not a leader either, Johnson. You've gotten nothing done. You're not a leader. And you're such a coward, in my opinion. You can't even see the word Islam. He's not just a communist. He's an Islamist, Mikey. How do these guys, the name of your book is Betrayal, right? Isn't that the name of it?
That's
the final betrayal. The final betrayal. How does Islam, and you've already named the one guy that's a Muslim that was backing Tucker, this I guess was a part of this as well, Malik, right?
Yes.
How does Islam play in with these technocrats?
I'll tell you what.
Why are they not talking about Islam? Why are they all afraid to talk about Islam? They want to talk about socialism and Marxism, but not Islam. That tells me they're avoiding it on purpose. How does Islam play in with the tech bros?
Yes, they don't want to talk about Islam. You're right, because they want to hide it from everybody.
Charlie was coming out and warning about Islam.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Well, okay, so why has, for instance, all these people, including Trump and Don Jr. and Malik and all these other people, why have they been so cozy with Qatar, for instance, in the Mideast? Qatar has been the sponsor, one of the main sponsors of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Middle East. They're totally radical, yet they're willing to get in bed with the United States, give us money, even offer a new jet for the president to ride in, right?
And we're going to give them a military facility in Idaho, Qatar is.
Exactly. So all of a sudden, there's like all these trillions of dollars that Trump has pulled out of the Mideast based on this new cozy relationship. Well, what is going on here? This is absolutely insane. Don Jr. with Malik, and I have a picture of them in Qatar together. Can
someone find that picture? Because I saw it earlier today.
It's not. I put this in my article, the second article that I produced on. That was today's article, actually. Omid Malik, the technocrat Muslim billionaire inside MAGA.
I'm going to it. Okay, here we go. This is his second article. I didn't even know about this one, but I did someone showed me the picture earlier today. Well, there he is. There's Malik at the Qatar Economic Forum with Don Jr.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
and then there's another picture. Isn't there another picture where I saw a bunch of them together, Logan? I saw a group picture where they're all standing up somewhere. Who's got that picture? Yeah. Can we find that picture, guys?
Yep. Find that original article. Click through it to the original article.
So here he is, Don Jr. at the Qatar Economic Forum. back in May 2025. The Qatar Economic Forum. Now, why on earth could we have some kind of economic agreement with Islam, the biggest funders of terrorism, Qatar? They're into social justice. That's one of the pillars of Islam. What kind of economic cooperation can we have with Islamists, particularly Qatar, for Pete's sake? Why do I feel like we're being compromised? The love of money is the root of all evil. That just came to mind.
It really is. You might remember I wrote an article in 2006 that detailing Western banking's adoption of Sharia finance, and since then it has infiltrated all of the major banking institutions around the world, who are now selling Islamic or Sharia compliant investments, bonds, stuff like that. And they're making money off of it, and they're selling it not just to Muslims around the world, but also to non-Muslims as well. So what impact has this had on a financial world? Well, we know the banks, they're all a bunch of prostitutes anyway, but they've taken this whole thing in, sucked it down their throat, then spit it out to the rest of the world. Well, this is have a cumulative effect. We see, I think, the end of this now with Don Jr. and Malik sitting at the Qatar Economic Forum, where they're schmoozing the Islamic world, and this is coming back into America. I have to say this: there's no other way to view Islamic finance other than an evangelistic tool for Islam to conquer the world.
Perfect. Yes. And you write in here, depending on who you ask, Malik has become synonymous with the unseemly financial entanglements of the Trump family because of his relationship with Don Jr., a puppet master for the anti-Israel crowd on the political right, because Malik's firm, 1789 Capital, was the largest investor in Tucker Carlson's company, or an opportunist who converted to MAGA for the money. This all makes Malik, 46, one of the most prominent businessmen in Trump world, a sort of, what is that word? Rorschach test for how you view the second Trump term. There are other ways of looking at him, too. He is perhaps the quintessential case of a red-pilled former liberal riding the Trump train, a reflection of the unique allegiances that are persuasive in the MAGA movement. If Donald Trump's return to power is about eradicating the left-wing views that supposedly infected the federal government, then the Malik is also the fullest expression of that mission in the business world. Quote, I haven't been to the White House once, end quote, Malik said during one of our interviews. Quote, I don't have any interest in doing that. I'm an investor. I solve problems away from the government, end quote. Another way to put it, he turns those anti-woke ideas into piles of money.
He's done pretty well for himself. He's amassed about $6.2 billion. That's not bad, right? Guy's got smarts.
Is he? What is his comments publicly on Israel? Anything?
Yes, he said he's very shy, if you will, to not criticize directly. However, you see the influence of Malik when you consider Tucker Carlson's swan dive into anti-Semitism.
Yep.
You see the same thing at Fox News, where other Islamic investors came in and took a piece of Fox News. This is a subtle backdoor pressure that's exerted everywhere they go. And any opportunity they have to insert their ideas, they'll do it. But then they won't crow about it necessarily, but they say, well, in fact, Malik is on record, by the way, of saying I didn't influence Tucker, and Tucker says he didn't influence me. But give me a break. How could there be any other explanation for how Tucker was so anti-Semitic after his relationship with Malik in the first place.
And how much money did he get for that?
Well, I don't remember exactly, but it was a multi-million-dollar deal that's founded TCM and TCN in the first place.
Yeah, it's all public record. You can look that part up. But
yeah, I think it was over $20 million.
Wow. What about the world? What was it in the? Was it in Saudi Arabia? They had the World Government Summit. Yes,
exactly.
So how are those guys? Those guys are all pushing for digital IDs. I mean, it was.
They are.
It was the Pippa woman that was at that conference at the World Government Summit in the United Arab Emirates talking about we're going to go to blockchain and all this. So is this another way the tech bros are all connected? Then you've got somewhere, is it Saudi Arabia? They're building the Neom city or whatever it's called?
Absolutely. These people throughout the Middle East.
Which is basically a high-tech 15-minute city in the desert, right?
Exactly. It's faltering probably right now, but nevertheless, they're putting a lot of money at it. And this whole business in the Mid East at this point, we've been looking at them basically for the terrorism that they produce. We see the savages running in the street and they're celebrating everything. In Israel, they're going to kill people, whatever. I'll tell you what. Behind all of that facade, you have a core of technocratic experts who are running this fintech system from around the world, and they're totally into technology. They're totally into technocracy. You see it in the architecture of Neom, for instance, and other cities. We see it in the Dubai. They make China look pikers at this point. They're really advanced.
In fact, here it is. This is in Saudi Arabia, the city of Neom. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. A vital infrastructure project within Neom in Saudi Arabia is soon set to begin its first operations in early 2025. The $2 billion port of Neom will be the main shipping and logistics hub of the futuristic megacity project. It's strategically located along the country's Red Sea coast, giving it direct access to vital shipping routes connecting Asia, Europe, and Africa. An important thing to note is that only the port of Neom will open in 2025, and not Oxagon as a whole, which the port is a part of.
But it's going to be a high-tech, digital, futuristic city, correct?
Absolutely.
So in other words, I want to make sure I get this right. One reason why we're seeing Islam not talked about is because they're flooding the zone with so much Gulf money, and so much of these stable coins and tech bros are in financial relationships with the Islamists of the world. True?
Yes, exactly. And I'm
so America is for sale.
Well, it's already been. I think it's already been bought and paid for. I make the case in my book, the new book, the Final Betrayal, that the economic system that the Trilateral Commission first proposed in 1973, they call it the New International Economic Order. I propose that this is coming to a head right now with everything we see going on with, especially with cryptocurrencies, the tokenization of everything in the world that can be tokenized, and at this point, the asset-based system that the Islamic world is running, that's where this whole thing is headed. We're gonna at some point we're gonna ditch debt altogether in this country. And I think you're going to see a switch over of the economic system into another alternative system. That would be technocracy, but it's going to be based on asset, not on debt. That means that will be the end of private property. That's the pure and simple. But private property has always been under attack, even with the original definition of technocracy in 1932. They said no private property for anybody at that point. Everything will be run by or owned by the technate, and all the people will be stripped of their right to own private property. This is exactly what we saw when the new international economic order was created by the Trilateral Commission. We saw it in Rio de Janeiro when Agenda 21 was formed. Agenda 2030 came along. stripping private property rights away from people. And now we see all of a sudden, like Klaus Schwab said a couple years ago, you will own nothing by 2030. Well, this is the how can you get from here to own nothing? Well, when the asset-based system is converted from where we are now, and we morph into basically Sharia law that maybe tokenization without Sharia, but nevertheless, we're going to be we have a compatible system with Islam. Islam funds already 1.2 billion people in the world, right? So this is not a slouch operation, an asset-based system. They know what they're doing. They understand exactly what they're doing. But at this point, our debt-based system is on its last legs. That everybody understands that. We can't continue at this point. The whole thing is going to collapse at some point. But if they can head that off by converting us into an asset-based system using tokenization, all of a sudden that makes sense that all of the money flowing from the Mideast into our country at this point, they're jockeying to buy assets that are going to be tokenized in America. For instance, how about the 680 million acres of land resources that the federal government owns in America? Well, the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, he bragged on national TV, if we could just tokenize all this, the value and the national asset, whatever, why, we could make a lot of money. Well, sure you can, at our expense. This is our national treasure, if you will, the people's, not the oligarchs who wants to tokenize it and then spread it around the world, and especially for the Islamic world to come in, swoop in, and buy all the tokens, if you will, that are going to be produced by this whole thing.
Yeah. And let's bring in the real quick for you part here for this segment. The Supreme Court, they seem a little today, their arguments, they don't seem too confident President Trump has the authority to impose these tariffs. Now, regardless of how people feel about that issue, I just want to ask this. What is going to happen if they have to return all that tariff money, right? I mean, this is going to greatly impact, I think, the public spending, the government's financial books. I mean, this is going to be a real problem. What are they going to do? They're just going to print the money, I guess, and send it back, right?
Apparently, I mean, there's no way you can't turn the hands of time back at this point. Like they say, the horse is out of the barn. So whatever comes out of this, nobody's going to get their money back.
Here's the book, folks. It's The Final Betrayal, available at technocracy.news, technocracy.news. Don't hate him just because he's putting together facts with footnotes. It is what it is, folks. You know, I remember when a lot of people thought George W. Bush was wonderful. Then they saw the truth. They thought that, the Cheney family, Dick Cheney and his family were, pretty good conservative, pro-America people. Nobody really thinks that anymore, right? I mean, his wife, Mrs. Cheney, was writing some great pieces for the Wall Street Journal. I quoted her in some of my books. What I'm trying to say is, folks, just read, consider. The Messiah hasn't come yet, okay? The Messiah, I got news for everybody. The Messiah has not shown up. So we don't have a savior here on the planet. We have a savior, but he's not ruling and reigning here on the planet. And don't be duped. Because you look back maybe and you think, I wish I'd been a little more discerning on George W. I wish I'd been a little more discerning on Dick Cheney. Can we not do this? Or George H.? So do you want to say the same thing now, or do you want to wait until later and go, I wish I hadn't been taken in again? And I'm not saying that President Trump's taking people in deliberately. I don't know his heart. I don't trust some of the people around him, right? And I don't think Don Jr. Has the best discernment in the world Do you?
Yes.
I mean, when I look at some of
I
his
don't think so.
when I look at some of his lifestyle choices the last few years, I'm thinking, I don't see a lot of discernment here. I hope this guy isn't making too many decisions or helping his dad to make too many decisions, because you don't want to take advice, I don't think, from someone like Don Jr. It's nothing personal. I just don't see a real discerning individual based on his public life that I've seen. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. I do. And, you know, at this point, when we talk about the Christians, the world now is talking about the great revival that's going to happen because of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Now all the religions of the world are getting together. They're talking about Christ. They're singing hymns all over the place, and people are getting. They say, well, a lot of people are coming to Christ. Maybe they are. Maybe some aren't truly. But I'll tell you what: if there's going to be a revival in the world, based on everything I see at this point, the defection of normal Orthodox Christians from the movement, the next revival that you see is going to be an Islamic revival.
Yep.
Not a Christian revival.
I think there's a Christian revival coming, but I think it's in the tribulation when Islam is chopping off a lot of heads. You see a lot of reference to the sword in the book of Revelation during the tribulation. Whether that's Islam or not, I don't know. But I do know that Islam is going to play a role in this, pretending on when you think the Gog-Magog war of Ezekiel 38, 39 occurs. I do see Islam playing a big role. And isn't it something how persecution does bring revival, right? I think there's a revival coming of Islam, as you say. It's going to take America by storm. I think we started seeing it more last night, but I think you're right. I think you're going to see the persecution of Christians ramp up and of Jews. And of course, that's where you also see many Jews and Gentiles becoming believers during that tribulation period, right? Because there's a lot of supernatural things that start taking place. An angel flying across the sky, preaching the ever-living gospel. You got two witnesses in Jerusalem calling down fire from heaven, shutting up the heavens from raining. I mean, there's going to be some major supernatural things going on. Interesting thing is a lot of my Pentecostal friends like to talk about all the supernatural things. I'm not sure. God does supernatural things. God does miracles. I'm not so sure, though, we're seeing as many supernatural things as some of them talk about in this church age. But I think once the church is removed and we enter into a new dispensation, if you will, the rules change a little bit, and the character nature of God doesn't change, but the way he works and who he works through changes. He's going to be working mightily through the Jewish people. That's why Satan hates the Jews. And many of them become believers. He's going to be working through many Gentiles. Many Gentiles will be saved through the preaching of the Jews. The two Jewish evangelists are Hebrew evangelists, who I think they will be to an extent, and to the Jewish 144,000. And so I think you're right. I think we're about to see persecution lead to a lot of problems for us, but I think it eventually leads to an outbreak of an amazing revival. Closing comment.
During the tribulation period, there's no question that there's going to be a mass of people saved during that period of time. That's because God is going to take care of evangelism himself at that point. And it will really be amazing, I think. But at this point, we're getting the dregs of the church age at this point, and we can see the defection going on around us. And all I can say to Christians today, don't get sucked into this idea of replacement theology, number one. And don't get sucked into anybody who said we have to build the kingdom of God on earth before Christ can return. If you do that, you're going to be sucked into a vortex, and you'll be deceived until the rapture happens. And you probably will wonder what happened here when it does happen. Indeed. So,
be very careful. Be vigilant. Do not be deceived. The Bible says it over and over. Do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. Just constantly, right? Technocracy.news to get the new book so that you aren't deceived. It, again, is a great book. I was happy to endorse it. The Final Betrayal, available at technocracy.news. Thank you, Patrick.
It's all on, also on Amazon
Kindle.
and on Books Buy as well.
Okay.
I have an alternative cited as well, so that it can basically it's going to be everywhere. It's,
Kindle as well. Okay, excellent.
yes.
Thank
Yep,
you. Thank you,
exactly.
Patrick.
You bet.
We'll be right
Bye-bye.
back after this very short break. Do you know about glutathione? You can't live without it. It's a naturally occurring ingredient in your body. But guess what? It starts to decrease around the age of 20. You need glutathione. There are over 165,000 studies on glutathione at PubMed. It detoxes your cells. And we know there are toxins everywhere. In fact, studies have shown glutathione may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Check it out at swishforlife.com. You just put a small 2 caps in your mouth, swish it for about 3 minutes. Then you can swallow it or spit it out. Studies show that this is in your bloodstream within 90 seconds. It's better than an IV. That'll cost you about $250, and it's broken down. But when you swish with it, it is in your body in 90 seconds in its totality. Glutathione, you need it to live. Swishforlife.com. Swishforlife.com. All right, that was a good interview. Now, apparently, Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly got together recently for a little conversation. Listen to this. Here's how that went down in part.
I mean, I personally have watched videos of him questioning the Holocaust, likening it to baking cookies in the oven, and there's no way you could have gotten to 6 million, seems to be his theory. He seems to think that we've way overstated the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust. He's ripped on poor Usha Vance in the most offensive terms, which I mean, so what do you say to those people? Say, why didn't you raise any of that?
You know, do your own interview the way that you want to do it. You're not my editor. Buzz off. I mean, I don't know. You want to go yell at Nick Fuentes? I'll give you his cell. Call him and go sit and yell at him and feel virtuous or whatever. That's up to you. I got the same thing with.
I mean,
Wow. I mean, that's not even an answer. So buzz off. Those are legitimate questions. Why would you not push back against a guy who's saying, oh, there's no way that 6 million Jews could have died? I've seen people trying to make the case that the numbers have been overstated. I think the numbers have been compiled pretty good from the studies I've read and the groups that have done it and how they came to these numbers, as well as the numbers of people killed at various death camps. And the way the system was so systematic, by the way. People, the timing of the folks arriving on the trains, the boxcars, and stepping off within minutes in the death showers. Can we talk about the documentary and the book known as Ordinary Men? That's where they assembled some police. I think they were police out of Poland, if I remember correctly. They assembled some police officers, and it was all voluntary. You didn't have to do this if you didn't want to be a part of these squads. And they took police officers and they assembled them into death squads, and they went to hunt down Jews and execute them at point blank range. Sometimes they would have them dig a big trench, digging their own grave, dig a big trench, and then shoot them, and they would fall into the ditch, into the trench. The studies show that they killed 1 million Jews this way alone. Just 1 million that way alone. And for those who doubt all this, do you know that those men were put on trial? Those men were put on trial. You can go watch some of the black and white footage of them on trial. This isn't conspiracy. The Nuremberg trials. Let's talk about those that were running some of the death camps. You can go and watch the trials of some of the men that were put on trial that were overseeing the death camps. Let me ask you another question. They want to argue with the number 6 million. What number can you live with? 5 million? Killing 5 million people simply because they're Jews? 4 million? There's no number. There's no number that's acceptable. And think about how debased someone has to be to now reach the point where they're saying, now some actually deny the Holocaust outright, But there's so much footage. And thankfully, General Eisenhower was the one that said, record this, because people won't believe it. And there's video footage of General Eisenhower, Omar Bradley, and I think it's Patton. 3 of these generals walking through a death camp. And Eisenhower, supreme leader of the forces, said, film it, because people will deny this happened. So people, I guess, some of them will deny it outright. Others are, I guess, realizing, well, that's kind of hard to do, and there's all this footage in these trials. So let's just argue with the number. What makes someone think that arguing with the number is somehow a virtuous position? So it was not 6 million, it was 5, it was 4. What number do you arrive at where you don't go, yeah, now I agree that killing Jews is horrific? I don't think there's a number they would ever get to where they say that, because these people, well, Nick Fuentes, the things we've heard him saying about the Jews, it's horrific. And to think that these kind of people now is what we're arguing about, whether or not someone should be interviewing them. It wasn't a debate. And the president of the Heritage Foundation now, I guess, has now made his 3rd video trying to dig himself out of a hole, because he wanted to call, I guess, people like me and others who were calling out Tucker Carlson that we were the people causing division. I think the best thing the Heritage Foundation can do is fire him. And you say, well, so you're now for cancel culture? No. What I'm for is for organizations, not having people running organizations. They don't seem to have common sense. Now, that's up for them. If they want to hire a guy and keep a guy that apparently, to me, who doesn't have a lot of common sense and discernment, then keep at it. I don't support the Heritage Foundation, and I certainly won't ever be supporting them. I used to speak positively about them. I've known about the Heritage Foundation since I was a kid. I used to quote their work. I used to respect a lot of what they did. I thought they were increasingly going more and more neocon, but I did respect some of the work they did, particularly over the decades. But now this guy is made a 3rd video. And it was all done what? Because he said, I'm friends with Tucker. So it's about the good old boy club again. Is that what it's about? Question mark. So Tucker doesn't even want to address the concerns about Nick Fuentes. He wants to be looks like an arrogant jerk. Buzz off. You're not my editor. That's what he said. Do your own interview. Well, Nick is back at it, saying some more things. Apparently, one of them now is he's hoping that the Democrats and the Republicans, with the pressure of the people on the left and in the left movement, and then him, I guess, bringing pressure on the right, that between the two groups, is he admitting now that the left and the people on the left and the people that he's now apparently leading to infiltrate the right are working together? Isn't that kind of what I've been saying? It sounds like someone sent these people in to destroy the America First movement. Today on the radio, I was saying there's not a whole lot of daylight between someone like a Nick Fuentes and Hamas, in my opinion. Remember the Grand Mufti of Palestine, Muslim Brotherhood, that Hitler worked with, who helped to plan some of the death camps, we're told. And I have the pictures in my new book on Hamas. It came out Monday. I have pictures in that book of the Grand Mufti touring some of the death camps as they're being constructed. The Muslim Brotherhood, which planted Hamas in 1987, the Muslim Brotherhood Mufti al-Husseini helped to plan, as an architect, the final solution. So we have the Islamist working with a Nazi, Hitler. The Islamo-Nazi working with the Nazi, Adolf Hitler. So I can see now how the neo-Nazis of today can work very comfortably with the Islamists on the left. That is a matter of history before, is it not? But apparently Nick is feeling his oats. And so now he's coming out and telling you what his goal and agenda is, which is what many of us have been saying. I think this guy's been brought in to destroy the right. So the Islamists, the Marxists, the fascists, whatever you want to call them, win. Watch this.
What did you think about Floyd Mayweather kissing the wall? Obviously, with the recent remarks from Mark Levin, Israel is getting desperate, paying these Americans with heavy influence. I sense the tides are turning. Some of the left and right are aligning together against Israel. You can't shut down truth. Thank you, Nick.
You can't. And I hope there's like an unspoken alliance. I hope that the progressive left does to the Democrats what we're doing to the Republicans, because they're sort of like a prisoner's dilemma. If the Democrats get a pro-Israel candidate, then the Israel lobby will flock to them. I don't think that'll happen, but it could. Or they'll let the Republican lose or something. And same thing with the Republicans. The Republicans will say, well, we just have to get behind the GOP, whatever. So the progressive left needs to make sure that a pro-Israel Democrat doesn't win, and the reactionary right needs to make sure that a pro-Israel Republican doesn't become the nominee. And there needs to be kind of like an unspoken thing there so that we'll get some good options.
Is it unspoken? He just spoke it, didn't he? It's kind of odd, Logan. He said, hopefully unspoken, but didn't he just speak it? Not really unspoken. Here's another clip. Watch this one.
You can call me a Nazi. You better be careful. Because if I'm a Nazi, then there's millions of young people that are following a Nazi. So you better be careful about those words. You're saying I'm a Nazi, I'm a monster. There's a million monsters then. There's a million Nazis out there then. Because they love my show and they agree with me way more than they agree with you. And they're pissed off. And they'll follow me into battle. So you better be real careful. You're barking up the wrong tree with that.
Do we have the clip where he's talked about the Jews, Logan? I mean, he says, if you want to call me a Nazi, like somehow it's ludicrous to use that term against him. I mean, he talks in ways that would cause, I think, people to come to that conclusion. And I got an email today from someone asking, because I mentioned the other day that we have a young 20-something that started listening to him a couple months ago. And when I found out, I started asking questions about why would you want to listen to this person? One of Logan's friends. Well, I'm just interested in what he's saying. So that's fair enough. But then they started asking me questions. Well, do you really think 6 million died in the Holocaust? Do you really think? And so I said, wait a minute now. Are you telling me you're starting to buy his lies? And I started showing them books like Mark Musser's Nazi Ecology, the book Ordinary People that I mentioned already, where ordinary guys who were police were taken and turned into death squads to shoot Jews point blank after hunting them down. And 1 million died that way alone. And as I began to answer the questions about where does this go? This individual has a relative that is Down syndrome. Do you know if this worldview of eugenics, because that's what it really is it not? It would be a paradise, says Nick Fuentes. Do you have that clip, Logan? It would be paradise if we didn't have to deal with the black people and the Jews. Doesn't that sound like eugenics to you? I'll tell you where I think this kind of thing would lead, if that wasn't bad enough, which it is, but where it would lead, what I said to my young friend, I said, do you realize where this would go? This is eugenics. You know where eugenics would leave your relative that is Down syndrome? Who you love, who brings much joy to your family? Do you realize how they would value the life of this family member of yours? And then can we talk about where does this go when we're at this point, when it comes to valuing the life of anyone that's either disabled or infirmed, aged? Let's talk about these ideas. Your worldview has consequences. Your worldview is the foundation of your values, and your values are the foundation of your conduct. Let's talk about what your worldview will produce with values and what those values will produce in conduct. And let's talk about it in reality of your family. But someone emailed me today and said, you mentioned that on the radio the other day. How do I talk to the young people in my life who are listening to Nick Fuentes? How do I talk to them? Does it matter? Is it morally wrong to shove a little old lady in front of the bus? I mean, after all, she's old. She's lived a good life. She's taking up space and oxygen and resources. Is it morally wrong to shove an elderly woman in front of a oncoming bus? I pray they would say, of course that's morally wrong. Then you're agreeing that there's absolute truth. There are some things that are absolutely right and some things that are absolutely wrong. Yes? Well, if there's even one moral law, thou shalt not murder. If there's even one moral law, then that means there is a moral law giver. Why is it universally people know that it's wrong to steal? They know that's wrong. Even the Bible says in Romans 1, what? They suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Knowing the righteous judgments of God, they suppress it in unrighteousness, but they know it. Now, how do they know what are the righteous judgments of God? Which can be summed up in short through the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not murder. It's not thou shalt not kill. It's thou shalt not murder. You can take a life in the instance of capital punishment, Romans 13. The government does not bear the sword in vain. And in self-defense, if someone breaks into your home and their blood is shed, there should be no guilt upon your head. Universally, we know these things are wrong in our heart, on our conscience. On meaning with, conscience meaning knowledge. It's with knowledge we sin or don't sin. Conscience with knowledge. We know internally through our conscience what is right and what is wrong. That means someone placed that conscience on your heart and your mind. That means these are universal. This didn't happen by random chance of billions and billions of mutations in billions of years. You were created like this. And God's moral character was placed on your heart and your mind through your conscience, which means there is a moral law giver. Now let's apply that moral law to the things being said by Nick Fuentes and ask yourself, is that right or is that wrong? Now, if you don't have a problem with this, don't be upset if someone comes along and decides you're not productive human resource. You don't make enough money. And young people, some of you aren't making very good money right now. I'm sorry you were born in a time with runaway inflation and massive debt and technologies taking your jobs. But you know what? If you want to follow this utilitarian system, which basically says the whatever gives the best outcome to the most number of people is what is right. It's the old lifeboat scenario. If there's 5 people in a lifeboat and there's only resources for 4, who do we throw over the lifeboat? Which one? Who's more valuable? The moral law says all life is valuable. That's why when a little girl falls into a well, this happened back in the late 80s, The whole world turned to watch as rescuers tried to rescue this little girl, and they eventually did, from a well. Why? Because life is valuable. Even one life is worth incredible measures in the heroic efforts of many to save even one life. Why? Because life is valuable. Thou shalt not murder. There is value in life, in each individual life. That's the moral law. That's the reflection of God's character and nature, which is why he says, thou shalt not murder. But utilitarianism says we make our decision not on what the moral law says, but what gives the most people the best outcome. Well, you know what? There are a lot of young people in their 20s right now. They really don't have a lot of prospect for a future. AI is taking over. We already just heard Elon Musk say earlier in the program that robots, AI is going to pretty much be doing everything. It's much, much smarter than we are. AI is going to be doing everything. Young people, you don't have much future for a job. Some of you don't have a whole lot of skills. Right? Are you enjoying the show tonight? Are you learning? There's really not much for you. And some of you, by the way, because you make such little money, you don't pay much in taxes. You really are a drain on the system because some of you are now getting on entitlement programs and welfare and food stamps. Some of you are living in your parents' basement and with your mom and dad still. That's not fair to them. They should be able to have a good life. So at some point, we have to decide, young people, whether or not you're really worth keeping around. Do you want that standard? Of course you don't. And if you don't want it applied to yourself, why would you apply it to someone else? Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. But in a Nazi, fascist, eugenics, utilitarian society, those kind of decisions are made. Who is productive human resource? And who is not? Have these kind of conversations with young people where you use logic and ask them questions. Now, there's no one here for me to question, but if there were a young person here, I would begin asking them these kinds of questions. And eventually, I think for some of them, the light's going to go on. And they're going to say, now I understand. Now I understand. I thought I'd mention that because someone emailed me today saying just that. How do I have a conversation with someone in their 20s about the idea and the worldview of Nick Fuentes that they're listening to? Well, listen to this. We played it the other night, but listen to this. He says, if you want to call me a Nazi, oh, okay, are you telling me you don't want to be called a Nazi? Are you telling me you're not embracing ideas that were promoted by Nazism? But then he seemed to say, well, fine, then if you want to call me that, be ready for the 1 million Nazis. Well, I think he's got more than 1 million people following him, right, Logan? Yeah, he's got multiple millions. And again, to anyone that says he doesn't have that big of a following, you underestimate his following. And how did we get to the point where a guy could have this kind of following? Have we asked ourselves that? Because again, we have inculcated into young people that there's no such thing as absolute truth. That life has no ultimate meaning, nihilism. That I deserve my share. I deserve a trophy. I deserve to win. I deserve to get what I want. We haven't taught a respect for work, for duty, for achievement, perseverance. We have not taught a valuing of human life. We have taught the exact opposite. Abortion on demand, active abortion to the point of infanticide. We haven't given many young people today a moral founding by which to hear someone like Nick Fuentes and automatically recoil. Instead, they listen and nothing seems to filter through their worldview that causes them shock. Doesn't that tell you something right away? Most of us adults hear that, we recoil instantly of what he's saying. Young people listen to it and say, is there truth in that? Is that his truth? Now they would say that, isn't that his truth? Maybe I should take his truth and make it my truth too, if it gives me the best outcome. And this, of course, is what's happened when we teach Darwinian evolution. When we see things going on at the World's Fair in the early 1900s in St. Louis, where we were putting black people in cages behind fences, calling it a human zoo, and that these folks they brought over from Africa and other parts, we called them the missing link, Darwinian evolution. When we cease to teach the truth about the Holocaust and what happens when people like Hitler come to power, and eugenics and racism and Darwinian evolution, or that of Friedrich Nietzsche, who Hitler loved. Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the founders of postmodern thought, who taught master morality and slave morality, the will to power, to spiritualize cruelty. And we wonder what we end up with, a generation that can listen to Nick Fuentes and not recoil like you and I do, but a generation that says, hey, he might be proposing some things that give me a good outcome because, yeah, I'm sick of crime. And I'm sick of certain people groups that maybe are higher in demographic and causing the crime in certain cities. I'm sick of overpopulation of major cities. Maybe we need to thin the herd out a little bit, give more opportunity to people. Yeah. Maybe our problem is we haven't been nationalistic enough. And by nationalism, I don't mean strong borders and our own laws, our own currency. I mean a form of nationalism that says the state is of ultimate importance, and we need to bring in an all-powerful state to regulate all the injustices that we feel are being done against us. And we need to find someone to blame for these perceived injustices against us as individuals. And they always look for a scapegoat of some group to blame versus saying, yeah, these are actually consequences I'm dealing with because we have a government that has had runaway spending, printing money, a welfare state, fighting wars all over the globe. I guess that's too complex for a lot of young people to understand, but if we would teach them things like basic economics and inflation and basic history, they could say, yeah, there are people to blame, but it doesn't happen to be minorities. Yeah, there are people to blame. It doesn't happen to be the Jews. But people tend to look for a group to blame. And when there is a satanic agenda involved, I can promise you Satan is going to find a way to make sure the Christians and the Jews get the blame. Listen to this clip from the other night of Nick Fuentes. Watch this again.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple. It's literally that simple. Anyway.
You know, that makes me sick. It makes me sad to think that people can listen to that and immediately say, I'm not following this guy. What would make anyone think that that kind of value system is someone you should listen to and even consider for 1 second? All I can say is because the ground, the soil of someone's heart and mind has been prepared to receive that seed of violence, that seed of hatred, that seed of racism. The soil was prepared. And it was prepared largely in our educational system. I think we have another clip. Logan, how many more we got of him? Okay, roll this next one.
For allowing women to go out into the society and lie and bear false witness and cast spells and worship minerals and rocks. And women are out there naked and they're killing babies and they're getting to be 300 pounds and they get in your face and we can't do anything about it. You can't hit these people. You can't punch them. They don't arrest them. And basically they're taking over the culture on social media. I said, what happened to the good old days 1,000 years ago when people like this, instead of arguing with them or saying, hey, listen, darling, everything's okay, they would dunk them in the river or burn them alive. I said, this is the kind of thing that we need to see more of, is burning them alive a little bit more. Taking women like this, and instead of hiring a lawyer for all this money and we're going to sue him for defamation, how about we go to the constable or whatever, we go to the police officer, the soldier stationed in the village, and say, hey, we got to burn her alive. Hey, this woman is worshiping rocks. She's bearing false witness. She's lying about men. And basically, we need to capture her and throw her in the lake or set her on fire. I feel like that would be more appropriate. And everybody freaked out. And this was all over Twitter. And everybody said, oh, this is horrible. Is this guy for real? Yeah, I'm for real.
I'm not sure he really is. I think in some regards, he's saying things to be provocative, to get a following, to get clicks, to get attention. I don't know what parts of this he believes and what part is just being sensational. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. He's saying it. To me, it doesn't matter whether he believes it or not. He's saying it, and there are people that take it seriously. Now, he wants to talk about women that lie about men, women that have abortions. Wait a minute. What is his moral code? He's worried about people that would take the life of a child, but he has no problem with burning women alive or drowning them? What kind of moral code does he have? Does he have a moral code that's based on any kind of absolute truth? Or do he have a moral code that's based on whatever whim he has at the moment? The Bible says that if we're not careful, we're going to increasingly see a day when men will do whatever is right in their own eyes. And isn't that really what happens when you have a breakdown of absolute truth and moral standards? That you have people doing things they claim at some level is for a good outcome. Oh, who defines good? Is it the group again? Utilitarianism, whatever gives the most people the best outcome? But notice how his worldview is so skewed in that he's worried about women that lie about men. He's worried about women that kill their babies, but then he wants to do what with them that he doesn't like? Set them on fire? Now, again, some will say he's just a provocateur. He's a shock jock. He's just doing this for attention. Okay, but how many does it take in a culture for people to start believing this and practicing this world view, these philosophies, these ideas? So you're asking me, Brannon, what is your solution to this? Cancel him? I'm not saying cancel culture. Now, he would never be allowed on our network, obviously, right? Because we have broadcast standards and we have a right to do that because we believe in private property. That's not a violation of free speech. He has no right to have free speech and say whatever he wants on our network because we're a private organization and we can have broadcast standards. He can go say whatever he wants, wherever he wants, in whatever corner of the world he wants. And for people to act like when we oppose this or say, but I don't think people should be giving him softball interviews, that somehow we're involved in censorship. No, that's not censorship. What that's simply saying is we have to have standards and a moral society, in a moral and sane society, we have to say that certain things are right, certain things are wrong. There are certain virtues that should be uplifted, and there are certain debased ideas that should not be given a platform or an outlet unless they are spoken and then condemned in a debate manner. So I bring this back up tonight. Maybe people are probably getting tired of hearing about Nick Fuentes, but I bring this back up tonight because of the fact that we have Megyn Kelly asking Tucker Carlson about some of these things. And his only response was, what, Logan? Get your own show. Instead of doing what I just did, that's what I think Tucker Carlson could have done with Nick Fuentes. Do you not have any absolutes? Do you not believe in thou shalt not murder? Do you not know that there were police officers that were turned into killing squads that went out looking for Jews to murder face to face, and they killed 1 million alone? Do you not know that many of these trials are on video, black and white? What do you mean you don't believe the number? What do you think the number really is? What number would it have to be before you're like, oh, this is horrific? Or is there any number? Is there no number? You don't care because you don't like Jews. What if someone decided they wanted to violate your civil liberties and rights? What would you scream? This is not right? This is not right? Oh, you want to go back to what is right? What's the standard for right? What's the standard for what is morally right or wrong, Nick? But instead of having that, he just offered up these softballs to him. And then when questioned by Megyn Kelly again today, he says this.
I mean, I personally have watched videos of him questioning the Holocaust, likening it to baking cookies in the oven, and there's no way you could have gotten to 6 million, seems to be his theory. He seemed to think that we've way overstated the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust. He's ripped on poor Usha Vance in the most offensive terms, which I mean, so what do you say to those people? Say, why didn't you raise any of that?
You know, do your own interview the way that you want to do it. You're not my editor. Buzz off. I mean, I don't know. You want to go yell at Nick Fuentes? I'll give you his cell. Call him and go sit and yell at him and feel virtuous or whatever. That's up to you. I got the same thing with.
I mean, I don't think Tucker Carlson knows much about virtue. Buzz off. Go do your own show. I just laid out for you historically and biblically the problem with people like Nick Fuentes influencing our young, impressionable minds, particularly after the soil has been prepared by our godless educational system, to then have a Nick Fuentes coming along spewing this garbage. At a time when many young people are suffering, don't have a lot of hope, don't have a lot of prospects because of the way our society is and where we're at with our economy and inflation and job market and housing market. And then along comes a guy spewing this garbage on this very fertile soil of the hearts and minds of young people. And I am very, very concerned. Because I've been doing this almost 36 years. And I understand the worldview war. I understand that ideas have consequences. And I understand the worldviews that are being espoused here that I'm talking about, whether it's Darwinian evolution, whether it is humanism, secular humanism, or cosmic humanism, whether it's nihilism, whether it's eugenics. I hear the philosophies. I hear them, and I know what they are in the outcome. And I think about the young people that are hearing it. How many of them now are going to become so despondent with what's happening and hear this? And some of them may decide, you know what? I think I will join a revolution. Let's go out for the Marxist revolution. Let's go out for the Islamic revolution. I mean, life has no ultimate meaning. Let's go find something that has some kind of cause. Seems like fertile ground for recruiting revolutionaries. And some of these people, these young people, should they go on with their life and become doctors and lawyers and judges, and they carry this kind of worldview, whether Nick Fuentes believes all this or not, or is just a shock jock actor, What if some of them believe these ideas and they get into accepting the idea of moral relativism, utilitarianism? There is really no absolute truth. What gives the most people the best outcome? Situational ethics. Life has no ultimate meaning, nihilism. You want those to be your judges? Your nurse? Your doctor? And Tucker's response to that is buzz off. I have to tell you, I don't know Tucker, but I've watched enough now to think that Tucker Carlson has a super big spiritual problem. I also think Tucker, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing here, is an extremely arrogant man. Arrogant to the point of, I don't know how much he has when it comes to feelings and compassion for other people. Because you would think at that age, and Tucker and I think are almost identically the same age, 56, and he is a father. I'm a father. I don't think he's a grandfather, but I am. And I would think by this point in his life, as many of you have been in this point, are in this point, are advanced in your stage of life with multiple children and grandchildren, maybe great-grandchildren. But at this point in your life, you would start to say, I am really worried about the next generation. I am really worried about the world when it comes to the condition of the world for my children, for my grandchildren. I'm worried about the pollution that's being mainstreamed. I'm worried about the ideas they get thrown up and there's no pushback. You would think he would show some concern, but you just saw buzz off. I think, in my opinion, theologically, if I did a spiritual theological analysis, Tucker, he is a very spiritually disturbed individual. And our young people today, many of them, they don't have a pastor, a youth pastor, a parent, a grandparent that is going to talk to them the way, well, we talked to the young man that was starting to listen and consider, well, are these things true? Are they true? Are those really true? Did that really happen? Why is he wrong? You see, that's why programs like this are so important. Because if the young people listen, and there are young people listening, I hope this has been instructive. But if there aren't young people listening, and it's just you listening, you know young people. And maybe I've given you enough that you could write down tonight to allow you to have that conversation the way I have conducted tonight with you, with them. Because I got an email today from someone saying, I want to know what you did, what you said to that young 20-something when they started listening to Nick Fuentes and asking you questions, and you warned them and you got them to understand this man is evil, his worldview, his philosophies, his ideas are antichrist. What did you say? How did you engage them in conversation? Would you please do a program on that? And so I have. And it should reiterate to all of us why it's important that each and every one of us is engaged in being salt and light. That's what we as Christians are called to be. Salt, stopping the rot. Be a preservative. Stop the rot. And then the light of the gospel. Tucker Carlson needs the gospel. There is no spiritual fruit I see that shows that Tucker Carlson is a Christian, even knows what a Christian is, and yet he seems to be pretty quick to say, I'm a Christian. Well, I'm sorry, Tucker. There is zero evidence you're a Christian. And I asked my audience over a year ago to pray for Tucker Carlson to come to know the Lord. And then a few months ago, I said, it's been over a year now. This guy's getting more and more dangerous. I would ask, and I'm praying that God would judge him and use him as an example and exhibit to realize you cannot say these things, promote these things, and think that there's a free pass. God has a standard. And for those of us who have placed our faith and trust in Christ, we pass from judgment into life. But at this point, Tucker, I think, is becoming such a spiritual liability unto young people and America and people of all ages, that one has to ask, how long will the Lord allow this to go on? I don't want to see anybody do anything to anyone physically and violently. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm praying that God would start choosing to do as he wills with some of these people. To show our country, to show the world that ideas have consequences. Your worldview matters. And that God cannot be mocked. But for the sake of our young people, we as adults and as grandparents had better quickly understand that this is not a joke. This is not a phase. This is taking root in the country and in the culture. And this is why we need to speak up and have adult conversations about very serious things. And we've done this tonight because someone emailed and asked, because they're dealing with a young person who's listening to Nick Fuentes, and they're struggling with how to rescue them, to set them free. Isn't that what real spiritual warfare is? Destroying the arguments raised up against the principles of the Lord, setting people free from lies. This is exactly what we're called to do. Exactly. And maybe you're prone to praying for Tucker Carlson's salvation still. That would be wonderful. But at some point, I also pray that God will deal with these people in his way, in his time. But this kind of flagrant rebellion and poison, I would think at some point God's going to run out of patience. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to come back. I want to talk to Michael Weiner about the housing market, about the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs, and where that's going to go, and if we have to pay them back, what all that means for our economy. And then we're going to talk to Dr. Lana, an interview I recorded yesterday afternoon with Dr. Lana on red light saunas and heating up your body, whether from a hot tub or a sauna, and why this is so good for us, and a few other things as well. We'll be right back after this break. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. Worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224. Are we in another bubble? Are we about to see a repeat of 2008? Remember the dot-com bust? Are we about to see an AI data center pop? Let's watch this clip and we'll get Michael Weiner to respond. Watch this.
One of the people who made his name during the financial crisis. Yeah, Michael Burry, the hedge fund manager who called out that 2007 financial crisis and the collapse of the U.S. housing market back in 2007, has now put a sour note on this AI trade, perhaps one of the biggest calls on this bubble risk that we've gotten so far, that kind of puts a little realness to what could happen over the next few years. And so what happened overnight was this hedge fund manager, Michael Burry, bought put options on 1 million shares of NVIDIA and 5 million shares of Palantir. Just to understand how much exactly that is, 1 million shares would be about a valuation of $187 million. And those 5 million shares of Palantir, well, that equates to about $912 million. And so a pretty significant bet here that Michael Burry is making on both of these companies, as all we've been talking about was the valuation of both of these key players within this AI arms race. And yesterday after market close, he went on to X and he shared a pretty interesting post. He basically pointed out one or a few charts, but one in particular was about the cloud revenue segments for Amazon, Alphabet, and Microsoft. And what he pointed out was that during the years of 2018 to 2022, we saw returns of 36%, 45%, and 22% for these three companies. And over the past few years, the return on both of those, or rather all three of those cloud segment revenue, has been significantly lower. And what he said with this graphic that you're seeing now on the screen was, these are not the charts you're looking for. You can go about your business. And this was after this filing had come out. This was based on a regulatory filing that for the quarter that ended September 30th. And so we're now just getting it. And it's definitely causing a bit of fear among investors this morning.
Yeah, definitely. Even though it's all sort of hints and insinuations. He's not coming out with sort of a long screed on all of this. He just dropped those things that you talked about. Now, we are also at the same time, just coincidentally, getting some commentary from big asset managers who are at a conference in Hong Kong, and they're also talking about valuations.
Yeah, at this financial summit, we heard from Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon. We also heard from Morgan Stanley CEO Ted Pick. And what they said essentially was that these evaluations are pretty significantly high right now, and we could be seeing a pullback. So specifically, Morgan Stanley CEO Ted Pick saying we should also welcome the possibility that there would be 10 to 15% drawdowns that are not driven by some sort of macro cliff effect, calling that a healthy development. Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon sort of echoed that. But we've heard from so many executives that investors should right now sort of brace for a potential market drop of about 10% over the next 12 to 24 months.
Oh, wow. The horrors of it. A 10% correction over 2 years. I mean, really? I mean, why are we even talking about this? Markets go up, markets go down. Is that really the popping of a bubble? Michael, it sounds like, I don't know. I have a hard time believing all the money being dumped into data centers and AI is only going to see a 10% correction. But I don't know, maybe the government contracts a lot of these companies get, it doesn't matter. But I go back to the chart that was shown there. The cloud segment growth, 2018 to 2022, 36%, 45%, 22%. But 2023 to 2025, the average was 17, 29, and 20. I mean, anytime, I remember one well-known economist saying, anytime you're averaging 7 or 8% consistently, you're a pretty good investor. When did it become commonplace that you have to make 17, 36, 45, or 22% return? Why wouldn't people be happy with 17, 29, or even 20% return? It seems like something is not right here. In the markets, number one, I don't think this is sustainable, all this money, unless, again, it's government-driven money. But number two, the mentality of people that they think that all of their stocks, or at least the ones in the tech industry, should be performing at these levels. It doesn't sound like we have a generation of young investors coming up that have a whole lot of understanding of economics or a grasp on reality. That if you're in something that's doing 10, 11% a year consistent, they think you're in a losing asset. You need to be in something that's doing, 36, 45% return. This doesn't bode well for the younger generation, does it?
Well, this whole situation is something of a bubble. I think, and we've talked about this in the past, that this bubble has been going on now for the last 3 years. We've had a market that's been sustainably going on and going up since Trump got in office. A little bit of a nick when it happened in the pandemic, but then came right back and started going up and up and up and up and up without any foundational base. That's the whole problem. Foundation. What's the foundation here? This is similar not only to 2008 in the housing market, but it's also similar to the dot-com era. The United States inherently makes a huge mistake overpricing things and overinvesting in things. AI is a hot item, but it doesn't mean you have to go nuts. And they're going nuts right now, putting money into it, and it's not sustainable. The stock market is not sustainable right now. There's going to be a correction. I believe there's even a bigger issue. I think that 10 to 20% correction has always been due, because it just kept going on. We watched it from 30,000 to 35,000 to 40,000, conversations of 50,000. The big issue here right now is why? other than investing. You talk about the young generation, they're all gamblers. They're wheelers and dealers. They're crypto people. These people are not concerned with owning stock. They want to buy mutual funds where people are not owning stock. They are betting on the price every day. That's what that guy did with this huge investment. It's not his money. He's not buying the stock. He's betting on it through funds or ETFs. The bottom of this whole thing is a double entendre. Number one, I think Trump is going to lose that tariff situation. I think they're bracing us for that right now.
So he's going to lose at the Supreme Court. A lot of the justices seem very skeptical.
I think he's going to lose.
And what will that mean? Will they make him pay all that money back or say stop it going forward?
God. Oh my goodness. It's a mess. Physically, it's a mess. I mean, the connections there are astronomical. First of all, the increase of debt. We're already in debt, but we're going to have to give back almost $1 trillion of revenue. We're going to have bonds that the United States government puts out chasing no buyers.
Wait a minute, let me slow down for the average person. If the Supreme Court says he does not have these emergency powers, if once he takes them from Congress, Congress can't get them back. That's the concern that I heard from some of the justices. So you can't take these powers, these emergency powers, and from Congress and then give them back. So if he's going to take them, this is setting a precedent, and it doesn't sound like the justices felt like this was within the constitutional framework that they were reading from. If that's the case, will they make them give back the money, or will they say going forward from here on? Do you know on that, first of all?
We don't. The reality is there's no middle ground on this. That's the problem. Either the tariffs are good or the tariffs aren't good. As far as the decision of that all is, they have to, a lot of people think it's great. You've got the people on the other side. Right now, do I think they should have had some heavy thought before they did it? I think Trump went into it because he felt empowered from 2016 when he used tariffs and nobody did anything. Now they're doing something, and the problem is homework should have been done. It's a little late. I mean, the surgery's been done.
So if you have to pay the money back, about $1 trillion, you're saying the government will have to create bonds, print the money and create bonds to sell
without the demand.
And no one's going to want to buy these bonds.
Correct.
So
why would you?
Yeah. So what happens? What happens?
A mess.
What does that mean?
15, 20, I'm going to tell you, there's several things. First of all, let's talk about companies that are in business. They use a supply chain as a means of running their business. How are they going to be able to document their plans when they've already adjusted for the tariffs and the additional costs, the expense, the revenue, outlays, deliveries, and now everything goes back again. Now they have to change all that. That's going to create a retail disaster. Then we're also going to talk about the renegotiating all the deals, literally how the supply chain is going to be going to us as a country is going to be a total mess. The stock market, I think, will go through a huge uncertainty, and I think you're talking instead of 15 to 20%, you could see 30% drop. It could get really bad. And
in fact, we have a clip in from the White House. I believe this is from today. Yep, this is from today. Listen to President Trump. He was just asked about it.
Issues are ruling. It could be several weeks. Are you going to lay out any new additional tariffs?
I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to hope that we win. I can't imagine that anybody would do that kind of devastation to our country. We'd have to pay back trillions of dollars. We've taken in trillions. We haven't taken in billions. We've taken in trillions of dollars. We've made trade deals based on that give us, as an example, European Union, $950 billion. Japan, $650 billion. South Korea, $350 billion. Without this, we're not talking about that kind of money. And they're okay. They're satisfied. They love us. I just left. They all love us. So it's not like we're such bad people. But they were doing it to us until I came along.
Wow. He said trillions, Michael.
Right now, the number is 750 million to a trillion that they took in officially. Maybe the other dollars haven't come into the framework yet, but the numbers that Politico is putting out is 750 to a trillion, and I trust their numbers. But there's a lot of uncollected funds as of yet too. That maybe that's what he's referring to. But as he's talking about, this is going to be a disaster because it's almost like saying you got married and now you're invalidating the marriage and you've already consummated it. I mean, literally, it is a mess. And the mess implications go to the retail side. The mess implications goes to the dollar, which will be a total disaster. The mess implications will go to the credibility of us foreign policy-wise, geopolitically, and financially. We're going to be literally chasing money and increasing debt, and it's going to be like almost like a sale in after Christmas when all the people jam into the stores. You're going to see people running out various different doors. You're going to see the stock market. You could see 1,000-point drops for several days, literally going on from this.
In fact, I guess they're saying in the court rulings, in the court, the papers that were being argued, that the DOJ was arguing that they would have to return the money.
They do. They have to return the money. And it's not a matter of if, it's not a matter of when. They have to return the money. And they're going to have to figure out where to get it from. And we're going to be in debt from that. They're going to have to print more dollars. They're going to be chasing dollars. They're going to be putting off bonds. They're going to be selling our debt. Our rate debt and the U.S. dollar will tumble. There's going to.
Well, look at this. This was in the case being argued yesterday. The general, I guess the General Sauer, S-A-U-E-R, was arguing it. The empirical estimates range from like 30% to 80% of like how much is borne by Americans. What? Haven't we been paying more in cost because of the tariffs? And now on top of that, we're going to be taxed to pay back the tariffs?
It's a double dip. It's a nightmare. And, when you see what happened at the election with all these communists coming in, boy, it makes them look so sweet right now because people are sitting back and going, I'm suffering and all the rest of that stuff. And then you're sitting back and let's talk about the housing market. Do you think it's going to make it better? America will continue to be rich enough to win. Our children who went out to buy homes, and I'm talking about the generation now, they don't have the money to buy a starter home unless they move to a state they don't want to live in. And that's the big issue. You could say, okay, well, go to Arkansas. How many people want to move to Arkansas? That I'm not saying anything bad about Arkansas. I like Arkansas. But I'm just saying these people want to live in New York City. They want to live in Miami, want to go up, and they don't have the money to buy the homes. The American dream is changing. That's why this is going on. And this is going to fuel the fire. And this could legitimately lead to a guaranteed victory by the Democrats.
Well, you bring up a very good point. You bring up a very good point, Mr. Weiner, because they're going to say that Trump doesn't know what he's doing, and he went ahead and did something without really being sure of himself and, legally. And look at this mess. And look how much you're paying for more stuff now and inflation because they're going to have to print the money or create it somewhere to pay it back. And then that's, of course, a hidden tax. So look, Donald Trump's capitalism has failed. That will be the narrative going into 2026. Capitalism doesn't work. It failed. Trump and his family, their net worth has increased during the time he was president, and even in the first 10 months, 11 months of his being president. They're going to point to all these different reports about stable coins and all the money being made, and they're going to say that capitalism is not compatible with a free society, that it's failed. We should all acknowledge that. And they're going to offer all the free stuff, which is socialism. And I go back to what I'm been saying. What we have today is not capitalism. This is not free market capitalism. We haven't operated under free market capitalism since 1913 when they put in the Federal Reserve and didn't let the markets care for itself, but started creating artificial maneuvers by a central bank. And of course, then you got the federal income tax which was stealing from one to give to another and expand the Great Society with Lyndon Johnson and FDR and others. I mean, we're not a capitalist free market system. So I think people ought to be prepared to explain to their children and grandchildren. They're blaming capitalism, but we really haven't had capitalism in the country for many years. But they're gonna do that, and watch how they win in 2026 with the pain of more inflation. True or false?
It's true, and the bad news is them winning. It's really false that their whole idea of socialism is better, because they don't give you anything. That's own
exactly
everything.
Right. That's right.
It's a bunch of garbage. It's just real simple for little kids out there.
They'll be inflating the dollars. They'll be inflating with taxes. They'll be stealing with more taxes and inflating more currencies if they win and can get the printing presses going in 2028. And I'm thinking that Trump's own Treasury Department will have to also go to quantitative easing. But even if the next administration is what we're talking about, and Trump's administration tries to hold down the quantitative easing, the printing of money, New York's going to increase taxes. Okay. And so you're going to damage the people that make the money, who go to the restaurants, who buy the nice meals. You're going to damage the producer, and they're going to leave. Then it's going to, and I'm sorry, it will trickle down. People won't be going to the nice restaurants, and the waiter and waitress who is making a pretty good living serving high-end middle-class to upper-class clientele, they won't be making those tips anymore. The tourists won't be coming in there. He's going to soak people that have the money, and they're not going to go. And the people that will be hurt will be the lower class. And we know that these free grocery stores don't last. They don't work. They had one in Kansas. And I have a clip of that. And it's the shelves are bare. It didn't work.
But the truth to it all is they want you to leave. Mandani wants to be left with only the people that agree with him there. So he wants the losers. He wants the people who are the good people to leave, so he can have a bunch of people that are left saying, you're right, you've done all this stuff for us. Yes, you gave me an apartment. 3 years from now, you're going to find out you don't have an apartment. They do. It's all about control, and it's all garbage. It's a horrible situation that we're in. If the Supreme Court allows this to go in this manner, not only is this a situation where the Democrats will be dancing in the street, and also the ultra rich will be dancing in the street, but also understand that the middle class, upper middle class people are going to suffer. And additionally, the Democrats are going to use this not only to win in 2026, but they're going to impeach Trump day one that they take over. And it's going to be a mess all the way to the 2028 election. And they're going to blame all of this on the Republicans, and they're going to try to take over the country and say goodbye to America.
Look at this. Here is an ABC on the free grocery store in Kansas before I play a clip from yesterday's arguments at the Supreme Court. Look at how this free grocery store worked out. Nothing's free, by the way.
For months, the store hasn't fully been stocked. Still, person after person comes to buy groceries.
I thank the previous operator for the years they put into that, as well as their predecessor. And now we'll try to do all we can to make sure that this works.
Mayor Quinton Lucas is disappointed. He met with the store operator 2 weeks ago for hours trying to come up with a solution.
Yeah, I know there are different challenges to how a grocery store can operate. Part of that challenge is that the city certainly has been happy to be a partner, but there's always a limit to what we will invest as well.
It comes down to money. The city owns the building and has invested nearly $29 million in the store. Still, the Sunfresh was losing money.
All of a sudden, you roll down here this morning and they're gone, and they're saying they're not coming back.
All neighbors know is there's no food here now, and they wish that wasn't the case.
I'd like to know what could be done, maybe to bring it back.
In Kansas City, Brian Johnson, KMBC 9 News.
So a grocery store owned in part by the government, a city-owned grocery store in Kansas City shuts down after nearly $29 million from the city had been invested to keep it open. A taxpayer-funded grocery store. Here's another clip. Watch this one. Here we go.
Clear this Sunfresh at 31st and Prospect is struggling. This is the first section people see when they come in. There's barely any produce. A lot of the coolers and shelves around the store look the same way, empty. So shoppers have been asking us, if the store isn't closing, then where's all the food? A rotten smell comes through the door, and anywhere you turn, you'll see products that need to be restocked. No hot food or deli.
I watch people walk in and walk out.
The grocery store has received financial assistance from the city, but has been unable to keep those shelves stocked in an area that in the past has often been referred to as a food desert.
Yeah. Well, when you don't have a profit motive, then who is going to want to work with that store? Who's going to want to sell that store? Make sure they're getting their bills paid. It's losing money. I guess it was being funded by the government. But when there's no profit motive, a reasonable profit, then the whole thing collapses because you have to have a motivation for people to want to succeed. And when there's no profit, why would you want to mess with a store like that? How many people weren't getting paid? If it's having financial trouble, how many vendors weren't being paid? And how many vendors finally said, we're not selling to you? So the question would be, they should be reporting on is, why are the shelves empty? Okay. Why are the shelves empty? People are coming there wanting food, apparently, at a greatly discounted price, but why are the shelves empty? But the question would be, is it because the people that were selling the food to the grocery store were not being paid? Were they trying to buy it from them at a price where there's no profit for them, so there's no incentive for them to sell it to the grocery store? I mean, you really need someone to do a story on why the shelves are empty. And once you take away a profit motive, you got a problem.
Absolutely. This is where capitalism works. I mean, you can't have a business that is not run by somebody who wants to make a profit. Because if you don't, then you have this type of a mess, everything free. If you remember, and you're too young, Brandon, I go back prehistorically, but at the end of the day, back in Reagan's day, and when Russia went under, it's because their shelves were empty. They remember it did a 60-minute piece about going into Russia and seeing people in line just to buy bread that wasn't there, just to get other items that wasn't there. And this is why it sounds so good to the people who are short with the funds right now to hear a guy like Mamdani, that piece of communist whatever, who sits back and promises everything, some of which he can't give, but it sounds really great to a person who's struggling paycheck to paycheck and actually going under, that the government's going to give me this, the government, and they're just going to take away from all the rich people. The rich people, in my opinion, are anybody that has money. I hate when they say the rich, because when it comes down to taxes, if you have money, if you've been responsible, you will be punished, literally.
Yep.
And the only way to make it through this mess right now is be one-dimensional and shore up. It's like Worldview Weekend talks about all the time. Prepare ahead with freeze-dried food, other things. It's the same thing with gold. We talk about people and you're lethargic right now and your brokers are telling you everything is wonderful. It was all wonderful in 2008 until the day the rug got pulled out from under you.
That's right.
And there's no forewarning by these people. The rug just gets pulled out from under you. So we're sitting here forewarning you.
Yep. Look at this chart. This is a very interesting chart. This is showing the S&P 500. That's in black. Keeps going up. And then total job openings, that's in blue, going down. Okay. Notice the time frame. Okay. We see the 2020 pandemic there. Total job openings, they crater. Businesses are being closed, grocery store, restaurants being closed, smaller grocery stores being closed. The big box stores got permission to stay open. Then you see the economy open back up and get going again in 2021 into 2022. And then you come up there to, 2023, and it really starts going down here into 2025. Now, the S&P, though, keeps going up, up, up. Jobs going down, down, down. The question is, why is the S&P going up? What this tells me is a lot of this is artificial. It's what Alan Greenspan called irrational exuberance. Number one, possibly, right? Number two, is it profits because more and more people are being laid off and fired and AI is taking over more and more jobs? I don't know the question, but that might play into it as well. But I wonder if this S&P going up is because these earnings aren't based in reality. I'm not sure I buy them. I'm not sure I buy. That's why I don't play the stock market. I don't trust the reporting from the corporations. Do you?
Not at all. Paper assets are what they are. They can make them worth what pick a number. It's almost like pick a number. We'll give you one. And they can sit back and make it. And then we get these readjustments later to everything. It's even what was going on under the Biden administration and the readjustments. Then we found out with Trump that there was readjustments on the drop side. We've got to sit back at this point of time and be one-dimensional ourselves individually to protect ourselves through this mess. And you would think that the Supreme Court would have some sense of responsibility, not just looking at this constitutionally, but also looking at this as for our government.
Well, listen to what Amy Coney Barrett said. Here's what Amy Coney Barrett said yesterday. Listen to this.
And then if you win, tell me how the reimbursement process would work. Would it be a complete mess? I mean, you're saying before the government promised reimbursement, and now you're saying, well, that's rich, but how would this work? It seems to me like it could be a mess.
So the first thing I'd say is that just underscores just how major a question this is. The very fact that you were dealing with this with quotas, there's no refund process to the tunes of billions of dollars or embargoes, but there is here. But for our case, the way it would work is, in this case, the government stipulated for the 5 plaintiffs that they would get the refunds. So for us, that's how it would work. Your question, I take it, is about everyone else, where you don't have a class action or anything like that. With respect to everyone else, there's a whole specialized body of trade law, and it's in 19 U.S.C. 1514 outlines all these administrative procedures. It's a very complicated thing. There's got to be an administrative protest. There was a harbor management case earlier that this court was involved with in United States Shoe, in which, the refund process took a long time. There were any number of claims and equitable relief.
So a mess.
So it's difficult, absolutely. We don't deny that it's difficult, but I think what this court has said in the McKesson case in 1990 is that serious economic dislocation isn't a reason to do something. Northern Pipeline, you guys stayed your decision for a while in order to let the congressional process unfold. There may be a congressional process here as well. You may be able to also be that this court could limit its decision to prospective relief under the John Q. Hammonds cases.
He said mess.
Yep, it's a mess. I mean, it's an absolute mess, and everybody's asleep at the wheel. It's like we sit here and we warn people, and it's almost like months ago, I almost think last year, we had that show about Twilight Zone when everybody was sitting back saying getting fallout shelters, and then one guy did, and everybody used to laugh at him until the day the bomb was dropping, and then everybody was trying to break into his bomb shelter. Reality is, this is a period of time where you better be paying attention to your assets and trying to do something logical, and that is, like my grandfather used to say, when you don't trust who's cooking dinner, don't eat. Put things in your control. If you don't put things in your control, you're a fool right now. You would think to yourself, in what world would somebody want to create this destruction? Couldn't something be planned through rather than pull the rug out from under you? And right now, you cannot have a partial settlement. It can't be done. It's either all or nothing in this. They can't say, well, tariffs were good up until today, but after today, it's not good. It's not retroactive. That's going to be challenged because you can't say it's good today and not yesterday. This goes back to the inception. So it's a
let's
real
go to
mess.
this article. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and those that are with them, dump $47 billion in U.S. treasuries. I read an article the other day. China and Russia are basically done using the dollar. So who's buying our debt? Who's buying our debt? And that's what they knew was coming along, and they knew that was going to happen as they used the U.S. dollar to sanction people, weaponize the dollar. So these countries started organizing. They dumped the dollar, and so now we need people to buy bonds to fund our debt. So we have the what was it called? That big act. What was it called? Sounded all nice and everything. The Genius Act. The Genius Act, and that now allows people to buy stable coins backed by bonds. So it was really just a way to get people to buy bonds because nobody else really wanted them, right?
Exactly, and the debt becomes circular. When we sit back and say, who's going to buy our debt? Do we actually track it? We could be buying our debt back ourselves. We could be playing a circular game ourselves, running in circulars, almost like somebody who has credit cards. And when they owe on one, they get another. And when they owe on that one, they get another. When they owe on that one, they get another. And when they get, I wonder, really, has anybody checked? Are we not maybe doing that ourselves right now? We don't know. We don't know. And we very well could be doing that because China and other countries are not jumping into our debt at all. Zero.
So who is buying our debt is the big question.
And again, well, first of all, there is some nations outside that are buying our debt, maybe through Japan and South Korea and other countries. But I believe it's being we're doing it. I believe we're doing it in-house. I believe we are circling the wagons, and one hand goes to the other hand, goes to the other hand, and we don't know. It's a shell game, literally. And that's why, when Trump says we're literally getting rid of debt, my question is how? Okay, show me.
I'm also reading that banks are having liquidity issues and that there's something going on with the repo market, those short overnight, short-term loans. That also is an indication a lot of times of liquidity problems for banks. What are you hearing about that?
Hearing the same thing. Repo market was a big place. Actually, big money people usually love repos because you get paid some decent money overnight, called overnights too. And we're finding that there's shortages there on one side and the other. And we're finding a lot of banks that are caught up in that, and also derivatives, which is another black hole that nobody ever talks about. It. The derivative market is so huge that they don't even bring it up. And again, it's another circular wagon, one hand to another, and the repo market is not secure, and the banks that are tied into it are legitimately being shortfalled time after time, and other people are picking it up, and they're literally making usurious type money to cover the in other words, they're charging a lot of interest to cover the repo marketplace. So somebody's making a ton of money, and we're losing.
All right. Well, what this really means is there's going to be more inflation, right? They have to print more money. They have to release more money. So It's going to create more inflation, which means that's a hidden tax. That means it chews in on your purchasing power, which means it takes more dollars to buy things, which means it's chewing up your savings unless you're getting a good return on your investments. I want to talk about the housing market, but first, if you want to get a free no obligation packet, just call that number 1-877-864-1072, 1-877-864-1072, or go to worldviewgold.com and fill out the form, worldviewgold.com, or 1-877-864-1072. All right, let's talk about housing market. I have an article over on my website today, if I can find it real quick, about home builders offering really lower interest. Here it is, found it, Wall Street Journal. Builders are offering mortgage rate discounts. Home buyers aren't biting. New homes are sitting unsold despite builders using sweeteners to shift inventory. America's biggest builders are struggling to sell homes even when they offer buyers a 4% mortgage. Their experience suggests rate cuts alone won't be enough to boost weak sales in the wider housing market. That's what the gentleman that was on here the other day talking about the housing crisis that's coming and the bond markets. What he says are fraudulent. Mix Vexler was talking about the fraudulent school bond market. He was saying you can lower the interest rates. This is not going to cause people to come jumping in and buying houses. And now here's the Wall Street Journal. And that's because the prices are just too high relative also to their income. So you have inflation, but the income is not keeping up with the inflation, correct?
Absolutely. And they just don't have the money. I mean, you could sit back and offer somebody a low rate mortgage, but at the end of the day, they've got to come up where you used to buy a house. And, and buy a house for 150, 125, 190,000. You could come up with $30,000-$40,000 and buy a house. You can't do that now. You've got to have a couple $100,000 to buy a house. How many young couples have saved $200,000 to buy a house? They either have to borrow it from their parents, or they legitimately need to rent because they have no choice. They can rent that nice place and then sit back and live there without having to put up the money. That's why some companies like BlackRock and the rest of them are going in and buying these homes, but they're buying them dirt cheap. They're not paying the regular price. So as I said, America is becoming rich enough to rent. And then you got these lunatics running around saying, we're going to get you rent control. You can't do that in a society where people are trying to make a living building and selling homes.
That would get struck down by the courts, I would think, right?
Yep. Correct. And this whole thing right now, I don't see any solution in the immediate future until there is a cleansing of this overpriced marketplace, like the gentleman who came out and talked about property taxes and all the other games that go on. I mean, in all due respect, California, you'd have to be nuts to want to live there. I mean, I lived there and I bought a home there, and I know what I paid in the 80s for that house, and I know what I sold it for, some ridiculous number. But to look at right now and say to yourself, I'm a first-time buyer in California and I don't want to live in Watts. So I'm going to buy a house, let's say in Gardenia or something like that, which is a 1,200 square foot or 1,100 square foot, 2-bedroom home with 1 bathroom, and I'm going to pay $900,000 for it. I kid you not. That's insanity. Who wants to do that? You're better off to rent. At least you get a decent place for what your payment is. That's what it comes down to.
So there you go. I don't give financial advice. I give financial opinion. You should brace for what's coming. You should have your portfolio stabilized with something that offsets inflation and the chewing up of purchasing power. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see. I think we're going to continue to see inflation. I think we're still on track. Gold's had a little bit of a correction. Silver has as well. But what?
That's a great time to buy. Wake up. Buy it for less rather than more.
I mean, why would it not keep going up? I mean, if they're going to keep printing money and inflation is going to keep going, why would it not keep going up?
Inflation goes down, the housing market picks up, the job market picks up. There's things at hand right now, and plus the other that aren't going to make that happen. And then in the other situation, gold is money. The rest of the world is the negative side of the gold market would be the world going to another type of currency. And the issue is that they are going digital, but China and the rest of them are using gold within their economies. So it's a double-edged sword for gold. Right now, under this administration, and even if the Democrats get in, we're on an upward trend. But in deference to the stock market, and I said this on a show, Brannon, in August and in the early part of September, we need a healthy market. A healthy market has corrections. If it doesn't have corrections, you're going to take a hit.
Yep.
Literally. You got an opportunity.
1-877-864-1072 to get the free no obligation packet, or worldviewgold.com. All right, great visit tonight. Great information. Thank you, Michael.
Good night, Dolly, wherever you are.
She's on her bed. She's on her bed, fast asleep. Can we not get a shot of Dolly, Logan? No, we can't get a shot of Dolly. Just trust me. She's laying on her side, fast asleep. All right. Thank you, Michael. Look at this headline, guys. Super Greens Power sold at Sam's Club, recalled after salmonella outbreak. You just got covered by an ad, or salmonella illness. There you go. Joining me now is Dr. Lana. Dr. Lana, welcome back. Is this anything we have to worry about ever when it comes to our beloved Gatatana?
Well, no, we don't. Short answer is no, because this is God's phytoplankton. Like, God made this. Man does nothing to it other than, David Hunter and Global Phytoplankton Alliance, everyone, they just dry it and put it in these jars. So nothing is added to it. And what's really interesting is they have the heirloom seed that was created by God. and they grow it in the pristine waters off the coast of Spain. However, it goes through a pharmaceutical grade, the seawater does, the ocean water goes through a pharmaceutical grade filtration system. So it's actually grown in the real seawater. Most marine algae and phytoplanktons, they're grown in artificial seawater. So that's the first problem. And then they can be contaminated, and, you know, companies add things to them and fillers and things like that. But the seawater that our Gatatana and Tetrasod is grown in is real seawater. And then it goes through a pharmaceutical grade filtration system, and it's just dried. That's it. They took what God made. You know, it's the first food on the planet. You know, it provides almost 70 to 90% of the oxygen. That's why it's helping people with their memory and their cognitive function, their digestive health, their energy, everything from cravings to just simple behavior and, you know, clear brain function and good digestive health. And there's no health claims. That's what happens when you put pure nutrients, you know, made by God, like delivered by man, we say, in your system. And they're so tiny, the nutrients that God put in the phytoplankton goes right into your cells. But this is pristine, and the way it is made is completely clean and pristine. And a lot of these other companies, they're adding things and they're buying ingredients, Brannon, from other countries, and they have different regulations. And so you put all that in a mix and these super powerful greens that everyone is so excited to take. And there's lots of brands of them. But the nutshell is, and everybody means well, but it's so easy to have contamination when you're pulling in all these other ingredients, and they're grown in all these other places, and they use, there's different subsidiaries, and they're buying from this company and that company, and they're putting it all together. That's where the risk comes in. You do not have that risk ever with Gatatana or Tetrasod.
Excellent. All right. Let's talk a little bit about red light saunas. I've been using one every day now for the past, what do you think, Logan, 10 days? And it is having a big impact. My wife says, you seem like you have more energy. And I think, yeah, I think I do. You're requiring less sleep. Probably true. But I'll tell you what she's not seeing. I feel more flexible. Okay. As we get older, I think we start feeling stiff, right? Oh, I'm stiff, right? And I sit way too much here at the desk. And of course, I get up, I'm very stiff. But I'm finding the red light sauna is also helping me not be as stiff. I also have a pinched nerve in under my shoulder blade for a few months. Been trying to get that repaired. But it's getting better, and it's causing numbness to run down my left arm. My hand feels like it's falling asleep all the time. My arm feels like it's falling asleep. It's that pinched nerve running up my neck, down my arm. But this red light sauna, and I get in there at about 128 degrees for 30 minutes or so and sweat. And I think that's really helping. Here's what one guy has put out here about saunas. He says that the rapid antidepressant effects beats SSRIs by 3 to 4 times, beats exercise by 2 times, boosts plasma, significant endorphin boost, and goes on and on and on. Also, 65% less chance of Alzheimer's, or 66% chance of dementia. I'm seeing all kinds of studies talking about how good this is for you. What are your thoughts on those kind of things?
Absolutely. And I'm going to go back to, and I'm going to say a scary word, but just for a second, and it's not scary for all of you, but, I'm going to go back to my cancer training for 6 years with two of the world's foremost in cancer. And the reason I'm saying that word, that none of us are fear mongers, right? We choose faith over fear. But the reason I said that word, and I'm not saying it, in conjunction with any product at all. But, in my years of training, one of the things that I was always taught to teach my patients to do was the 4-letter word. That's a good 4-letter word. Ready, everybody? And I think those of you that might be at the conference, I'm not going to say anything bad, but it is heat. H-E-A-T, heat. Heat the body, and that could be any way. And those of you that don't have access, to the red light saunas like Brannon, and I think that's wonderful that you're doing. But here's what it goes back to: heating the body. Because rogue cells, malignant cells, those bad, nasty rogue cells, they hate heat. And when you can heat your body, whether it's in a sauna and safely, I mean, a lot of you, go talk to if you're on medications, go talk to your PCP, your healthcare provider, because I know if you're on coagulation, meaning blood thinners and things like that, or if you have a pacemaker or a Watchman, of course, be responsible, talk to your doctor, but they heat the body up in a lot of these treatment centers, and they do not kill the healthy cells, but they kill off the rogue, malignant cells. And so I would tell, one of the things that I would teach my patients is to, if you could, get in those saunas, and if you can't, a hot shower, a hot bath, safely, especially if you don't feel well, have somebody standing, at the bathroom door. You don't want to be in there, and get really, really hot and not have someone there to help you. But hot showers, steam showers, hot baths, and yes, these saunas, and it goes back to heating up the body. It's like, I'll tell people, look, I know exercise people don't want to hear geez, I have to exercise all the time. But it comes back to seriously moving the body and just walking your 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 10,000 steps a day. Your body is heating up as you move and as you walk. And when you're talking about the sauna, Brannon, you are heating the body up, which is very good for healthy cells and very bad for rogue cells.
Yeah. Listen to this clip here. I thought this clip's pretty interesting. Listen to this.
However, there's a lot of benefits that have been related to more hot traditional types of saunas, Finnish saunas, for example, traditional saunas that are hotter, right? And so you're staying in these 175, 180 degree sauna for 20 minutes, and it's associated with lower cardiovascular related mortality. So if you're doing it 4 to 7 times a week, that's associated with a 50% lower cardiovascular related mortality versus doing it 1 time a week. Or all-cause mortality. It's associated with 40% lower all-cause mortality versus doing it 1 time a week. So
what's going on there?
Right, exactly. What's going on there? And so the really fascinating thing to me about this deliberate heat exposure from a sauna is that it is sort of mimicking moderate intensity aerobic exercise. And this has actually been shown. It's been compared head to head to moderate intensity, like cycling on a stationary bike. A lot of the physiological responses, so your core body temperature goes up, your heart rate goes up, right? When you're exercising, your heart rate goes up. Same thing happens when you're in a hot sauna, your heart rate goes up. Your cardiac output is increased, right? Your blood flow is increasing. All these things are happening and they're very similar. Exercise, heat stress. You're sweating, right, to cool down your body. So it's a way of sort of mimicking this moderate intensity exercise. That doesn't really happen in an infrared sauna if you do the same amount of time as you're doing in a hot sauna. Now, perhaps if you increase that time, it would happen. But there's all these benefits that are happening with just doing a deliberate heat exposure from a sauna that seem to not only sort of mimic cardiovascular exercise, but they add on to it. So we were talking about cardiorespiratory fitness and how important that is for longevity, right? Where there have been studies that have looked at people that exercise on a stationary bike, or they exercise on a stationary bike and then follow that up with a 15-minute sauna. And it's been shown that those people that do the 15-minute sauna on top of the exercise have a higher improvement in their cardiorespiratory fitness. They have more improved levels of their cholesterol and lipids. Their blood pressure improvements were greater. So there's this additive effect of adding on the deliberate heat exposure with the exercise that isn't happening with exercise alone. So again, that's sort of just more evidence of why, doing a deliberate heat exposure like a sauna, in fact, hot tubs, that's something that's also been shown to improve blood pressure. In fact, a study just came out a couple of weeks ago showing that a hot tub is very beneficial for improving blood pressure, for doing all the same things that a sauna does.
Isn't that something?
Oh, absolutely. And she talked about cardiorespiratory health. And you and I mean, your audience knows this by now. We're not making this up. We don't plan this. We take your expertise and, humbly, I'm here, and cardiorespiratory health is our life. And I want to share something with all of you really quickly. This is the leading killer in our nation, and the leading killer in the world is cardiovascular disease. And they say heart disease, but we're not talking about heart disease where you have a valve malfunction and you need a cardiothoracic surgeon and an anesthesiologist. Okay, some people say, I have heart disease or something wrong with my heart. That's mechanical failure. And you do need a surgeon and a really good anesthesiologist for that as well. I'm talking about cardiovascular disease, your blood vessels from head to toe. And your heart, your blood vessels need, Brannon, we can't even plan this. They need greens, okay? Because when you add greens to your body, not greens that are contaminated with all kind of things, pure greens that God made and man just dried, that helps your blood vessels to increase nitric oxide, which helps your energy, and it gives you a youthful feeling and helps your breathing. And then you need glutathione to breathe. So cardiorespiratory therapy requires good, pure greens like gaditana or tetrasod and glutathione. I mean, I've had patients that have had heart attacks and strokes. They've come to me after they've had them. They get referred by a family member or someone. They go on, Inspired by Wellness, and they're like, Dr. Lena, can you help me? And I know a lot of your training is cardiovascular health and digestive health. Well, the greens, meaning the pure gaditana and tetrasod and glutathione, are always in the protocol for cardiorespiratory therapy for these patients. And their cardio rehab nurses and doctors are in shock because their recovery is so much faster than the other patients in the cardiorespiratory therapy because they're using the glutathione switch and they're taking the gaditana or tetrasod. They're taking 1 to 4 scoops a day of gaditana or tetrasod, and they're swishing 3 to 4 times a day of the glutathione.
I want to take you here at Melissa Howse. Well, let me just take you to worldviewtube.com/sponsors because you'll find it all. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Go there. You're going to find the Numi. That's the glutathione to detox your cells. Studies show it may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. You can also go to melissahousegpa.com. That's our gaditana. I take a scoop every day in water, and Dolly gets a half a scoop of the pet product on her food. It's all there. We believe in these products. We use these products. And I think then when we combine them with other things, like our Bella Grace, these are the 3 powerful things I do every day. Then the red light sauna. All of these things help because I do not want dementia. I do not want Parkinson's. I mean, I've watched family members, grandmothers, my mother-in-law. The last thing on earth I want is dementia or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, right? Dr. Lana?
Absolutely. And I'm going to, that conference special is over, but I'm going to be emailing you and Logan, and you can, restart that program and offer it's an entire program of gut and brain health. They go together. So it helps brain fog, ADD, Alzheimer's prevention, as well as acid reflux, bloat, and irritable bowel syndrome. Believe it or not, they say when the gut is on fire, the brain's on fire. And when your brain is on fire, your gut is on fire. So many people misunderstand and don't realize it is the gut and brain connection, as well as your cardiovascular health, that will help prevent dementia and Alzheimer's. And so I'll send that new link over to you and Logan, and you could pop that up there. Absolutely. And we are here to help your audience. And you won't be able to find this information elsewhere because a couple of the doctors that trained me have passed away of old age, and the rest of them don't teach at the school anymore. So they're in their 90s. So,
well, this is why it's so important that we have our weekly visits. We're trying to bring stuff to the audience, new information, and then talk to Dr. Lana about it as we just did tonight. Inspiredbywellness.com is her website, inspiredbywellness.com. And as always, we enjoy our visits. Thank you, Dr. Lana.
Absolutely. God bless everyone.
You too.
Have a great.
All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. As always, if you appreciate what we're doing, we need your support. Roll the music, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also, what was that music? Wrong music. It was the wrong music. It was about to put me to sleep. Worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. I was going to fall asleep right here at the desk if that music continued, Logan. I wasn't even able to get out of the studio tonight. I was going to fall asleep right there. I was like, that's pretty relaxing music. Maybe you guys didn't hear it, but I could hear it loud and clear with my earpiece. All right, that's my music right there. That's my theme music right there, as Mr. Cooper used to say. You guys remember that sitcom? All right, may God save America. Take care.
Faith